Hi guys, my name is Aryan. I'm the founder of Ketovation, K Nutri, and the K Nation podcast. And today I have a special guest with me, Jon. Why don't you introduce yourself and just tell everyone a little bit about how you got started with exercise and what you're up to now.
Sure. So I'm the program director here at CrossFit Solid Ground. I've been here for like 2.5 years, and I kind of teach classes and train clients and take a lot of the new people that come through the gym. I got started in the Army. I was a reservist for a couple of years when I was a little bit younger and wasn't very fit at all, and kind of got things handed to me a little bit and got told to start with exercise and diet and nutrition, and fell in love with that, changed majors, and ended up going to school for health and fitness and ended up here.
Nice, man. Well, welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much.
When you were first starting out, what were some of the struggles that you kind of felt that you had to overcome as a new person to exercise, let's say?
Well, I never played sports, so I never had this background of team sports or really knowing any of these things. So it was kind of just researching online, and it sounds like back in the day, but 10 years ago, trying to find stuff online and doing a couch to 5K program online and doing 100 sit-ups a day. There was that 100 push-ups a day program that was out there. So I would do that and not really know what to do. And just trying to discover resources on my own. So running into injuries really early on that I still kind of maintain today a little bit as a younger person, just going from 0 to 100, trying to be okay, I need to be fit, 2 weeks ago. So that's kind of where I started out with all that kind of stuff.
Right, that's cool. Because when I was in high school, I was around the 10th grade, I started working out as well. And I was 140 pounds soaking wet. I was really small, and I did the same thing. I went on bodybuilding.com. I found nutrition and exercise, and I started doing all these fitness programs, and I always felt like the results weren't coming fast enough. So you would try to push your body to that that next stage that it wasn't really prepared for. And injury, I think, was a big thing that plagues most people that get into any exercise or sport. And I know you have a lot of experience with not just injuries but the rehabilitation process itself. So can you talk a little bit about people that come to this gym, they have injuries, they're looking for a rehab protocol or process, and kind of what you would take them through in that stage?
Sure. Yeah. So it's funny because most people come in and they're worried about being injured from exercise in general, but 50% or more already have injuries just from daily life. And it's usually bad movement mechanics, or it's lack of strength in certain muscles that they get knee pain when they're walking up the stairs. And they're oh, I'm not injured, and I'm worried about getting injured or getting hurt from moving. But they're already in that spot, and they're a step behind the 8 ball. So I think it comes back to quality movement mechanics, understanding movement, and getting somebody that can watch you move and help you move better. Because even myself starting out, starting a couch to 5K program and running, I ran into a knee injury 2 weeks in, and I remember walking around high school and limping around high school as an 18-year-old and not having any idea oh man, I just ran a lot and it hurt. So how do I understand that? And I went to a physio, and they gave me this huge long program as an 18-year-old, and I never really did the program and never had a gym and never had any support with that. So it always just kind of became a thing. And I just found out years after, when I went to school, that I just had tight hamstrings, and I just needed to stretch my hamstrings. And that was the main thing. All my knee pain just came from stretching my hamstrings. So if I did a 5-minute warm-up, a hamstring stretch, I was totally good and had no knee pain at all. So it was kind of this eye-opening thing where if I just find the issue, I can go around this injury. You're always going to run into problems no matter what, but it's understanding what the root of that issue is, and that came from quality coaching, from other people and resourcing other people and understanding that.
Right. I think that education component of injuries is far overlooked. Most people just jump straight to the treatment plan or going to a doctor or getting medicine. But if you look at, a lot of injuries are either knee related or lower back related, especially as you get older. And if you look at the root of most of those, it's usually some sort of muscle tightness around that joint. So I remember there was a long period of time where I had a really tight lower back, and it kind of felt like it was right in the spine. But it just turned out that my glutes were just really tight. And someone showed me, at the gym here, called a pigeon stretch, where you literally just lay your front leg out in front of you for 2 to 3 minutes, I did that once or twice, and I was like, my lower back pain is gone.
Yeah.
You know, and if I'd gone to, let's say, you know, a medicinal doctor, not all of them, but you know, some of them might just jump to prescribing you medicine, muscle relievers, and things that you might not necessarily need, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's the biggest thing that happens when people get injured is they'll go see their doctor and the doctor tell them to stop moving.
Yeah.
That's like number one. So they come back to us and they're like, I need to take a month off from moving in general, as their like first line of defense, which is understandable. But if I just give you 5 minutes of stretching and we fix the problem, then we saved you a month of training. That's like massive, right? Yeah. That's like night and day difference in terms of your overall goal of getting there in a year or whatever your goal is, right? I think that's most people's go-to versus trying to understand their real issue. And I think that most people need a certain amount of stretching or mobility things for them individual. You can call it physio, you can call it rehab, you can call it whatever you want. I think that, I know I have tight hamstrings and I just need to stretch my hamstrings. And that's going to be true for the rest of my life, probably. It's not something that I'm going to change. I could, do programs to try to help that as much as possible, but it's going to fix. And maybe you need to stretch your glutes out for the rest of your life as well. And that's just like, you get yourself 3 stretches and you do them 3 times a week and you don't have lower back pain anymore. And we've essentially fixed that injury rather than like stopping exercise altogether. As like this first line of defense, it's just, it's ridiculous that let's try to go look at what the mechanics of that movement are, understand where that pain comes from, and if we as trainers can't get there, then okay, go see a physio as your second line of defense, okay, see what they say, and then you go down the line of like, you're gonna move. This is gonna be, exercise is gonna be part of your life. It's something that you like, just stop moving, it's like, okay, I got hurt, and now I'm just not gonna exercise anymore. You have to keep moving in some way.
Right, and that's kind of one of the theories behind people that get older, like in terms of aging. You really start to age when you stop moving, because there's this stigma that as you get older you should stop exercising and limit your range of motion, but that's really what leads to the limited ability to move around, be able to do all the movements that you did when you were younger. And you see people that continue to exercise, run, play all the sports into their 70s and 80s, and they look young, and their joints are healthy and their bones are healthy, and they're able to like live their life to the fullest, essentially.
Right. Yeah. It's because they've kept moving for so long, right? It's they've kept this consistency of moving versus like I have so many clients that come in with like goals to get better. Now they're at a spot in their life where they have like the money to pay for training, they have the time to spend on training, and they're behind the 8 ball. Like they can't catch up for years. They need consistency and training to get them back to like 0 in terms of pain and injuries, just because they stopped moving altogether. Things hurt and life got in the way and they just like stopped moving altogether.
Right. And that's, going back to doctors, again, not all are like this, but I remember a couple months ago I hurt my knee, went to my doctor, he did the ultrasound, found that there was, some fluid in the knee, and it looked like the assessment was a partial tear in my meniscus. So he basically told me to stop squatting and to stop playing hockey, because the injury was from hockey. And that was devastating for me because, my ability to exercise, my ability to play sports is kind of what fuels me. That's what keeps me alive. It's what keeps me happy. So I was really disappointed. And then I thought, I might as well get a second opinion at this point. So there's a physiotherapist that works out of our gym, Raj, who's unbelievable.
Amazing, yeah.
He's done a lot of, rehab and physio with sports teams. So I went and saw Raj, and he did some quick assessments that were movement related. It got me to do certain motions on the floor. And he goes, I don't think your meniscus is torn. I think that you have a bad bone bruise, and that any tearing that they saw in the ultrasound might have been from years ago. It's just showing up now. And so we did a few weeks of protocols, and now I'm back squatting. This is something that I would have probably never done again in my life if I hadn't gotten a second opinion and seen an expert in that field.
Yeah, that's crazy to think that you could go down that route of never squatting again just because of that one piece of advice, right? And for like most people coming out, like we both work in a gym environment and are here most days. Even for me, so I had a shoulder injury that just kind of got worse and worse and worse. I found out I tore my labrum in my shoulder like years ago, and it just kind of got worse and worse and worse. I eventually had surgery last year on it, I thought like I would never put my arm up overhead. Like I stopped like opening doors with my right arm at 26 and was just like, okay, like this just sucks now.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, like just functional daily things, you know, like maybe I'll just have to use my left arm for the rest of my life. But going down that route of like, okay, before I go into surgery, let's do a bunch of rehab. Let's understand that something is torn and like the only way to fix it is to get surgery on it. So I'll do as much work as I can beforehand. And then once I was done with that, I did a diet program, I did a rehab program, and I started getting professional coaching on like my exercises once I got back into it. So it was like, let's spend all the money that I was gonna do on you know, chiropractic and physio and all that stuff, and let's put it into diet and exercise, and really try to dial that in. And now I feel like the best I've ever felt, which is a really big turnaround just because of that rehab program.
And that's eye-opening. You know, it's almost, you probably feel grateful that you're able to find that approach that ended up working out for you better than anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like the diet or the prescription was, you know, don't move. And, you know, I'll take a month off and it still hurts. And okay, what do you do from there? Like, you know, I feel terrible because I'm not moving, and I feel terrible because my shoulder hurts. So it's like both of those things can't be hurt, because I can't just like stop moving altogether and have a shoulder injury. So I got the shoulder injury fixed and I started moving again immediately, as soon as I could.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Even just the rehab for your body to get back to like hormone levels and to get you recovering, and get those things moved up. If you just stop moving altogether, your body will kind of like baseline, right? You'll get back to wherever it wants to go. Like it's gonna adapt to whatever you give it. So if you give it nothing, nothing's gonna change, and healing's gonna take longer.
Right. And so you work with a lot of not just newer members to a gym, but you work with, you know, people that are coming from injuries and they've stayed away from the gym, or, you know, they've never really had the courage to get in a gym to begin with. What factors do you see that kind of limit people from starting that first step, you know, getting in a gym to begin with and starting some sort of fitness routine?
I think it's the fear that like they won't be able to do things, you know, like they have this idea like, okay, like I could think about like my shoulder injury, like I couldn't open a door anymore, but it has nothing to do with my legs at all, right? Like I could jump into one of our classes and be totally fine, and still move in some sort of way. So I think people are scared that they're so limited about what they can't do, and they're worried that like this is just the way that it is. They kind of have this like acceptance mentality where it's like, okay, like I have X pain and that's just the way that it is, versus let's try to work on those things and let's try to strengthen everything around it. And you know, your pain might still be there, but for a lot of people it goes away. A lot of people, you can get around that because the root of the problem is lack of strength, lack of mobility, lack of understanding. It's one of those things that they've never moved and they end up with an injury because they want to do something, they want to play with their kids, they want to do a recreational sport, and then they kind of get hurt and then stop moving altogether. So then they come to us with this, you know, like I want to be playing hockey again recreationally, or I want to do something recreationally, but you need to strengthen them up first. There's a lot of fear surrounding moving again, and I think that you need to focus on what you can do.
Right. And that's really important, and I've seen it not just with myself but with other people, that, you know, the ability to move and to move comfortably, whether it's in sport or exercise, it stimulates the mind for growth, right? So not just getting blood flow in there, but releasing endorphins, you know, feeling happy, being able to do things that you like. You gave a perfect example, like parents being able to play with their kids, I think is probably the most underrated aspect of staying healthy and taking care of your body, because those are some critical years for parents to be able to live life fully. So it goes far beyond getting, you know, strong or looking good. You're talking about being functional to live your life fully, basically. Yeah,
and there's like this fear of like, okay, I'm hurt, so I can't move. But then if I don't move, I can't do the things that I want to be doing. So you're screwed either way, right? There's no middle ground. So you might as well keep moving, understand your injury, and kind of get past it, and keep up with those things that you know you need to be doing. those like, example we had before, those like stretching things that you need to do every single day. Like, it's just part of who you are. If you want to be able to play with your kids 20 years from now, okay, awesome. You need to stretch your glutes right now.
Right. And you have to be willing to invest some time and energy into that
absolutely.
protocol, right?
Yeah.
It can't just come from you knowing what it takes. You got to be able to implement that 20 or 30 minutes a day and prioritize that stretching or that small exercise that you have to do. Because it does happen to a lot of people. And I've seen it happen to people where they get injuries. They'll go and see a doctor, and in psychological term is white coat respect, where whatever they tell you, you just take 100% for being true, and no other options are really available to you. So they'll say, stop exercising and take this medication. And I'm not saying all doctors, again, that's a huge disclaimer. There are some doctors that will send you to physio or chiro, but there are medical professionals that will just say to stop exercising, take this prescription medicine. And usually some of those medications have side effects that either make you a little bit unhappy, or they lead to weight gain, or they lead to inflammation. Yeah. And now you're in this downward spiral where your physical activity decreases even more, and you kind of feel stuck at the bottom, right? You reach this point where you don't really see any options left for you. So the one thing that I can encourage people to do is always get a second opinion from experts in their field, right? So whether you're seeing a physiotherapist, or you're seeing a chiropractor, or you're seeing an athletic therapist, always go and see a professional that's only for that field. Right? Because that's where you'll really get the best advice.
Yeah, the human body is so complex. Yeah. And I think in just today's society in general, people want things as quickly as possible. Yeah. And even with from what I see, people coming in here with their exercise programs, they want to get results immediately. Yeah. And it's not that they don't want to work hard. It's not that they don't want to put in the time. It's that they want to spend 60 minutes going as hard as they possibly can, but they have an injury, right? So let's spend the first 15 minutes of your hour stretching and mobilizing and doing some of that injury rehab every single time you come in, and then we can go for 45 minutes and we can work really, really hard, and you're going to get more out of that. It's the patience of that and taking the time and doing the things that aren't fun to come in and make sure that your health is priority number one, which is the overall goal for most people, but then they don't spend time stretching. It's like, we can fix all your problems by a little bit of stretching. Why aren't you doing these things, right? It just takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes years to be able to get to where you want to go. It's like the daily grind of just slowly putting in the work.
Right. It's those small amounts of time every single day that kind of add up to the big picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
That keyword patience, that comes up every single time we have a guest on here, no matter what we're talking about. The idea of patience, and our motto has always been staying focused and being consistent. And I can't stress that enough. And, you'll hear that from us every single time we say anything about being successful, whether it's in nutrition or exercise, but it takes a lot of focus and a ton of consistency over a long period of time to achieve anything. Even if you think it's a small goal, rehabbing an injury, it's still going to could take years, right?
Yeah, it's trusting the process of doing that. And I think that comes from expert advice, knowing that what you're doing is effective, right? If you just kind of look up something online and you don't really know if it's the right way to do your rehab program, or you don't know if it's really the right diet for you, let's try to find you an expert in that field to understand it, put some onus on them to give you the right advice, and have some accountability for that. That okay, if I do this for 6 months, I'm going to see the results and put in the effort, and now I have somebody that's going to give me the right information to do the right thing for that period of time. Coaches need coaches. I think we both have coaches that have influenced us, and we continue to go to them for advice. You don't need to do this on your own at all.
Yeah. Right.
It comes from other people to give you that information.
And that's one of the reasons that led me to starting this nutrition program, was because I saw people looking at the wrong information and approaching it the wrong way. It actually led to them either gaining weight or feeling unhappy or feeling discouraged. And so, I felt that there needed to be a thought leader in this industry to give the correct weight loss program for people to see, the fastest and healthiest results possible. And I always give the same reference. You could do a ton of things on your own if you really try to. If you wanted to learn how to ski, you could get a pair of skis, you could get on a hill, and you could just go up and down as many times as you wanted to. And you might hurt yourself a few times. You might fall a bunch of times, and then over the course of a few months or a few years, you'll probably get it somehow. But, you know, you're now taking twice as long to learn that skill. You're hurting yourself a ton in the process, and you're learning the wrong mechanics. So whether that's in nutrition, in exercise, or in sport, it's always worth investing your time and energy into the experts in that field, and going straight to the source instead of wasting your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more that you need that advice, you need that help. There's so much information online about everything all the time, and you're going to run into problems if you think you can kind of tackle problems on your own without that individual understanding of those things, and realize that those things might not be the funnest way to learn how to ski, right? Like it might be fun to go down the hill every single time at max speed, right? That's a great example of like related to exercise too, right? People want to come in and they want to go as hard as possible in order to conquer their goal. Like they want to learn how to ski the Black Diamond, so they go down the bunny hill as fast as they possibly can, versus like, let's learn how to stop first. Let's learn how to do those things. And it's like, it's not fun to learn how to stop, but it is fun to go fast. If you want to go fast 5 years from now without being hurt, you need to learn those mechanics first and foremost. And it gets back to patience. It gets back to understanding that you need to take the time to understand your body, understand your mechanics, both with diet and movement in general. You need to understand what works for you and take the patience and take the time and do those things that aren't fun. It's not fun to measure your food every single day, but you get results from it.
Exactly, yeah. And that's, you know, everybody is unique. Your body is unique. Your journey to, whether it's rehab or exercise or nutrition, it's going to be different from everybody else. So that personalized approach is extremely helpful in making sure that process is as efficient as possible for yourself, and it's as tailored towards your needs as possible. And just touching on one last thing, with people who come into the gym, let's say they've made a decision, they come to the gym for the first time, and somewhere down the road, because whether you're doing sport or exercise, you always run the risk of injury through that, just because you're pushing your body to its limits. So if they get injured, or if they get discouraged, what are, you know, some suggestions you have for people to either get back in or get back on track? Because I know when I get injured, I don't want to go back to the gym. I'm almost always super discouraged. You know, I've probably gained a bit of weight, so I don't feel as good. And then I'm not as strong. My aerobic capacity is down, and I don't want to get back in the gym. So, you know, for people going through that, what advice would you have for them?
So I think that I completely agree that it's really hard to push through that. My shoulder injury like really sidelined me for a long time, and I came into the gym wanting to do the things that I used to do exactly the same, or I would modify them a little bit and have expectations for myself to be able to do those things, versus being consistent and being at the gym, moving in some way such that, okay, like you're going to have a rehab program that's going to take X amount of time. Let's say like 3 months is going to take you to rehab this injury. Let's keep you moving during that time. Let's keep you in the gym in some capacity. If you come in and like stretch for an hour, but you still have that in your schedule Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're going to come to the gym for an hour. Don't have the expectation that you're going to do what you used to do. Let's get you back to where you want to be, and then we can kind of continue from there. A lot of people get discouraged because they're going to change their bodies, right? They're like, it's amazing. We see people change their entire makeup of who they are as a human in 6 months. And then they get, you know, oh, I have a little like nagging pain here. It's like, we change the way that joint now functions. It's way different. There's way more muscle around it. There's way less fat in there. There might be problems from previous whatever, right? Sports, injuries, accidents, or just your genetic makeup. We're going to change the way that joint works. So if you run into problems, like, that's expected. Let's try to understand how to keep you consistent inside of that time frame.
Right. I love that. I think that's probably easily the most rewarding aspect of both of our, you know, lines of work, is the transformation of people's lives and the increase in quality of life. So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This was amazing. I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy this episode. Yeah, thanks so much. No problem. Just let everyone know again where to find you, let's say on social, or how to connect with you if they want to. Yeah, so I'm at CrossFit Solid Ground. You can connect me on Instagram at Jon Mulder. It's Mulder without the ER. And then at CF Solid Ground is the Instagram here. And if you're ever in Thornhill, you can come out to the gym and I'll be here. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And I'm Mario Frizzelli. You can find us at Ketovation on Instagram and Facebook, as well as www.ketovation.com. You can find our supplements on Instagram at K Nutri, as well as www.knutri.com. So thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks so much.